should I say it? Go ahead.
We're ready, Marcus. Yeah. Are you going to go up there? Yeah, sit here. Yeah. Wow, everyone's ready. Okay. Hopefully this will stay there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's good evening. I want to thank you all for coming on this rainy day, and hopefully more people will be trickling in as the evening wears on, but it's great to see so many bright, shining faces today. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you. I owe a debt of gratitude to Judy Larson for helping us bring this talk here. Some of you may not know that we had originally, I've actually known Andrea and Marcos for a long time. Andrea go way back to the 90s or so. Marcos, early 2000s.
Food house, right?
Food house, yeah.
What was the other little space? The alternative space?
Oh, Bliss.
Lane Riddle, Bliss.
Yeah. In fact, we're going to have Lane Erre, who wrote a sort of history of that, come and speak in June, and more on that soon. But thank you, Judy Larson, for bringing this to us. We had planned on having Andrea and Marcos speak closer to the opening of the show at the Westmont-Ridley Museum of Art, but it did not work out date-wise, so we were thrilled when Judy and the artist agreed to come back up and do this toward the end of the exhibition. The exhibition that I'm talking about, of course, is Ramirez Erre, So Close and So Far, featuring Andrea Bowers and Marcos Ramirez Erre. So the byline is a focus on immigration and activism. And this show opened on January 26th. It's up through March 25th. So if you have not seen the show, please go and see it. It's an amazing show. I went to the opening and I caught the tail end of it, and I was so happy to see the show. It's a really remarkable effort on the part of the artist. It's an outstanding effort and presentation by Judy and her staff at the Westmont-Ridley Museum of Art. Just so you know, the museum hours are weekdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then this Saturday, the last day of the show, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Also, I was talking to Judy a little bit before this evening's event, and Judy described this, along with many other programs that she and her staff have been coordinating at the museum at Westmont, as a small act of resistance. And indeed it is, yet it's also so large as well. And if and when you go see the show, you'll know what we're all talking about. And if you've seen it already, of course you know what we're talking about. This show actually came at the end of a full academic year, during which time the Westmont-Ridley Museum of Art examined issues surrounding immigration from various aspects. And so what a lovely way what an important way and a timely way to end that year of investigation into immigration with this show by Andrea and Marcos. I do want to extend thanks to the exhibition sponsor, Michael Kidd, and also this evening's event was made possible in part through an in-kind donation and support from the Hotel Indigo. So we are thankful to them as well. And one of the things I did also want to mention is that this show actually presages a big effort that we, institutions in Santa Barbara and over 50 institutions in Southern California, are organizing as part of the Getty Pacific Standard Time LA or LA Latin America initiative. And this is a series of exhibitions that opens in September 2017. And one of the great things about the Getty PST LA initiative, other than its amazing focus on Latin American art and its relationship to Los Angeles, is that in Santa Barbara, it's been the excuse for all of us who are doing Getty PST LA shows at the Westmont-Ridley Museum, at the MCASB, at SBMA, at UCSB, Misa Hickson at the county, the Historical Museum, and others have been meeting on a regular basis and talking about the things that we're going to do during this time period in the fall of 2017. So we will have a number of exhibitions up here in Santa Barbara, but even better, this has opened up a dialogue about many things, including social practice and how do we communicate things like that to our audiences, among other issues. And I think that we are all, I can speak on behalf of that group, we call it sort of the consortium, or the cohorts actually, the Santa Barbara cohorts for Getty PST LA. One of the things that I can just say that on behalf of that group, we are so impressed and grateful to Judy for organizing the show. I think we all feel it's a very brave exhibition to do, and of course we all know how incredibly timely the exhibition is. And as an extension of that, I also want to thank Marcos and Andrea. Really, we are so grateful for you both being here. You are both stellar artists, internationally recognized, and how fortunate we are to have you here in Santa Barbara together tonight. So with that, I thought what we would do is, you guys do not want to hear from me. I don't want to hear myself talk anymore, really. And I'm here mostly as just sort of a moderator, mediator. And what we're going to do is maybe have each artist spend about 15 minutes talking about their work and maybe other aspects of their work that would help contextualize the work that's at the Westmont-Ridley Museum of Art that you've either seen or will see before Saturday. And then maybe open up the last half hour to themes about the exhibition and the exhibition itself and sort of how that came about. So we've asked Andrea and Marcos to bring some slides to, so that they can, this will aid them in talking about other projects that they've worked on that's led up to this work. And I think what we're going to do is start with Andrea.
Okay, so this is talking, not this, right?
Yes.
This is talking, okay. Thanks everyone for coming out in all of this rain. I'm going to start my timer. Thanks to Julie for having us. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have such a big mouth, I can just scream without any of this. This is going to be hard for Marcos and I because we're both long-winded, and we can talk together for hours and we're friends, so this is going to be tricky, and I have 1,000 slides. Okay. So I want to thank Judy Larson for allowing Marcos and I to do the show. And it's never, what did you say, Marcos, about like being, people love to have us come, but then we bite them, after we get there. Then they get what they asked for, and they must think, why did we do this? Why did we bring them in? But anyway, I'm super proud of this show. It's such a joy to do it with one of my oldest, longest friends. Marcos is a brother to me. I love him that much. We've known each other for a very long time, and we've been through a lot of ups and downs together. I want to thank Christopher, who worked at who installed, I don't know, you do everything. Like, I don't even know. And I was not ready, it was horrible, and I had to leave, and he had to handle it. It was really rough. But thank you. It's beautiful what you did, and you're so good. And thank you so much for having us, Julie. It's really lovely. It's lovely. It's like, what I do is not really that easy to support. It's hard. It's not something that everyone can handle. Like, I cut out, if we look at just the red and the blue states, I cut out 50% of my audience, and then some in the middle. So, it's really hard. You have to like put up with with the politics when you show my work. So I'm grateful for the years of support and like all of these amazing women who mainly support my career. I'm just so grateful. So thank you, Julie. And I feel the same back to both of you. Okay, so I have so much. I'm going to just show one of my early pieces because this is back in my mind again. I just reshowed all of this work at the Bronx Museum, which is like one of my it was always one of my dream spaces to do an exhibition. It's my bucket list. I have a bucket list, and the Bronx Museum is one of them. So this is Elvira Arellano, and she, in 2006, 2005, I can't remember, George Bush decided to find all the terrorists. So he had the airports kind of like search to find the terrorists, and he found Elvira Arellano, who is an undocumented single mom who was cleaning bathrooms in the airports in Chicago. And he decided that she had to be deported. So her child, Salito, was like 6 or 7 at the time, and he was an American citizen, and he really didn't want to move to Mexico. And so a local church, the Alberto United Methodist Church, invited her into sanctuary, which is a very long time movement from groups to protect people from being deported, or to protect people from the governments. And the government has a long history over many hundreds of years of not going in and removing people from church. So there have been sanctuary movements. And I've been fascinated with sanctuary movements for years because I make work about activists and actions. And I feel like it's my job to, record undertold histories. I feel like it's my job to have my work be in service of the revolution. As Emory Douglas said, the Minister of Culture for the Black Panthers, and what he meant is like art should be in support of these political issues and movements that we believe in. And so I feel like I just am trying to do my part to support them. And then I'm also like willing to be on the front lines. I have been arrested for trying to save a forest of trees from being cut down. I plan on getting arrested again. So we'll see when that happens. But anyway, so Elvira, I was like, I'm only one person, and I don't always have the money to fly to interview these people, or can I get the permission? So finally, it had been a while, and I was panicked. I just really wanted to go meet her and videotape her. I usually start a project with video interviews. The church responded. I got a crew together from the local schools in Chicago, and we went in and I shot a film of Elvira and Salito, and I interviewed her, and I just took pictures, and I made a whole body of work from it. This is a drawing Who would Jesus deport? It's colored pencil on paper. This is a light box. It's not nearly this big, but I like it projected this big. This is the inside of the church. She had to lock herself in at night because, do you remember the Minutemen? Marcos did an amazing billboard in San Diego about the Minutemen. The Minutemen were standing outside of this church at night threatening her. In the church, there were these two banners that said, "I was a stranger and you welcomed me." They were like felt banners. And the other one said, in Spanish, Marcos, what's the translation of that? Is that as I'm a foreigner, or is that I'm a stranger?
I was a foreigner.
Foreigner. And so I love the slight difference in translation. This is a quote from the Bible. So I turned these two, I copied the font that they used, and I turned them into two 30-foot long quilts. The Spanish language is on an American pattern for quilt making, and that the English text is on, the English translation is on a kind of like pattern based on a kind of like Mexican blanket, right, Marcos? What would be the proper language for that? But like, I was thinking about two different kind of like patterns. Anyway, and so like it was all yellow fabric because the banner was yellow. I was just thinking about this idea of radical hospitality, which is a political term. Like it makes me crazy because I'm from Ohio. As we know, it's still a contentious state. Like why Ohioans are obsessed with their hospitality. You know, the Midwest farmer's daughters really make you feel all right. You know that song? But we are fearful of people from other places. I don't understand the contradiction. So this notion of radical hospitality, that like we must like open our doors and open up borders as a radical, as a political act, became really important to me because of where I'm from in Ohio. So I was thinking about a giant blanket, a metaphorical kind of giant blanket that would cover everyone. And then I made a film about Elvira and Salito where I didn't actually have them speak. Everybody had such opinions, and at the time I was spending a lot of time in Tijuana with Marcos and Coco, his wife. And I started talking about Elvira, and I realized that everyone in Tijuana had opinions about her, not always so good. Everybody was so opinionated about what this woman was doing, living in sanctuary. And so I decided to do a silent film where it just kept moved from the back of the church all the way to the front until it got really close on her eyes, and her eyes were like 8 foot tall. And I did the same thing with Salito, and it was like, you know, so anything that you thought about her, you were projecting from your own head. It was your own thoughts, and you become really conscious that it's your own opinions. But when you hear her talk, people can make opinions about her. So I was like interested in seeing what would happen with that. So I also showed this. This is actually from out, out sort of, where is that area where they grow like all the vegetables? What's that county? You know where they grow all the food? In California. Yeah, Central Valley. I showed this in an Episcopal church out in the Central Valley. And so this was just on the door. Anyway, it was great to see the shift, you know, to show it in Methodist church, but to see it out there where there were a lot of people dealing with the same issues. This was her church. I make these giant cardboards I collect, I'm going to whiz through this. I don't want to talk about this show really, but I'll let you see things. These are photorealist drawings. I'm into intersectionality. A few years ago, before I knew that term or understood it, I started to realize, because I go to every protest I can possibly get at and I just photograph things, I started to go like, oh my gosh, that's a trans woman fighting for immigration issues, you know, and I started to realize there were all of these trans and non-binary folks who were out there supporting immigrant justice issues. And I started to see there were all of the, in like feminist issues, and I started to see all these complex issues that were affecting people, and that was like something new for me at marches, and I became really enthralled and compelled with that. And it really changed my thinking. These are all just like 13, 12-foot cardboards. One of them showed here, Julie, this one?
I believe it was one of the previous.
One of the previous ones, okay. So anyway, these were all, so I'm really interested in labor. These were all of the flyers for labor groups or workers' rights groups that I could collect from every organization in the city of Los Angeles at that point. And it took hours and hours and hours and days and days and days and weeks and weeks and weeks to allow the organizations to find them, to speak to them, to explain what I was doing, and allow them to let me show them. So the exhibition space actually became a place for tabling. You know when people hand you out flyers or whatever? So you had activists in the art world kind of all together, and everyone was talking around these tables. This also overlaps. So I would say the issues that I'm interested in are, okay, I have 5 minutes. Okay, I think, no, what do I have? Are you keeping time? I'll do it.
Yeah, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, so so labor becomes an issue. So labor rights, workers' rights, immigrant justice, feminism, particularly women's health care, and environmental issues are like all things that I've covered over my lifetime. So these are drawings based on I was in support of the slogans of the Dreamers. The Frieze Art Fair was undocumented. This is a group of Teamsters. We protested the Frieze Art Fair, and the Frieze Art Fair was ununionized. It was not unionized. I protested with the Teamsters from inside the fair, and we unionized the art fair within 1 year. This was the letter I wrote. These were the flyers we made. We went back. These were IWW graphics that I had used to make my drawing, and we went back and used them to make new flyers with the Teamsters to unionize the Frieze Art Fair. I inserted in all my work in the fair, I inserted flyers or posters. So like you'll see freeze, unfair, freeze out, don't freeze out New York workers. And I tried to insert it in all the work that I had in the Frieze Art Fair that year. There's a butterfly in the exhibition, these cardboard butterflies. The butterfly is the symbol. You know, the butterfly, the monarch migrates from Canada all the way down to Mexico. And so that's become one of the symbols of the immigrant rights movement. And so I had a residency, embarrassingly enough, at Louis Vuitton. So I made, yeah, it didn't work out all that well. It was not a good thing. I was never so happy to be home. You'd think it would be great, but it was awful. That's a whole other story. I'm not allowed to talk about it either. Do you like how I followed their legal agreements that made me sign? Anyway, but one of the beautiful things that I did was I got to work with their graphic designers who normally make all those beautiful Louis Vuitton things, and I got them to make political graphics for the immigrant justice movement. So all of these come from that, and there's one at the museum. So you can see these hanging at Louis Vuitton. That's just a couple. This I want to talk about really quickly. I'm from Ohio, as I've already said. There was a horrible rape case years ago, I don't know, like a few years ago, where a young 16-year-old woman had been to a party with all the football players in August, and she passed out. Either she was drugged or she drank too much, and the football players drugged her from party to party and raped her. And then they tweeted it, and they posted pictures. So it was like the evidence was on social media, so it was kind of the first trial that was tried based on the evidence from social media. And this type of, there it is, this type of rape culture I grew up in and to see it still happening 30 years later. So this, I went several times back for the actions because Anonymous, those people that wear the masks, the white masks, were the ones who brought attention to it. I went back to the protests, but I also went back to I managed to get into the courtroom. I don't know how I did it. There were only like 35 seats in the courtroom, but I talked my way in. They wouldn't let me bring a camera, but they wouldn't even let me draw. They told me do not draw anything, but I hand wrote all the text messages that were entered as evidence. And then this is, I think, over 100 feet long, and these are all the texts. And the texts tell a perfect narrative of rape. So, I was struggling with aesthetics and craft and wondering, so Jane Doe, of course you don't have her name, she was who was raped, and this was one of the young men, one of the football players, they were almost all football players. And I was wondering if the aesthetics would empty out the meaning or if the aesthetics would make it more potent. I was thinking about a digital landscape with the way that it's drawn. I used markers. I was thinking about a generation, of high school kids and what they might use. So the white is the white of the paper. And then these were some of the activists outside. I was really angry about the masks. I didn't think women should wear white men's masks, and then I realized that for them they functioned as a way to protect them from being beaten or abused, because many of the people in the town were very angry that their football team was being, that prosecuted. So these are colored pencil drawings. Pencil drawings, graphite on paper. And then there was a video that I just shot. I made a video based on all the social media that I downloaded at the time and just re-edited it into a narrative, with, of course, my own political perspective. So I kind of used their same tools in an alternative way, almost like against them, I guess. Anyway, trans women, I did a show. So I've been going to these marches. Laverne Cox. So I just want to show some quick pictures. I just photographed these pictures of LA. Well, no, they're from all over. Famous trans women activists. So these are 9 feet tall. I just want to show one more picture. This is CC McDonald. This was the show. I made drawings. Just want to show the pictures of one piece in the show. So you get to go through all of these while looking. This is a giant cardboard, 22 feet tall. These are all drawings. This is kind of fun, right? Like really quick, boom, boom, boom. These are like some of the pictures I take. This is also, there's a series of these. A lot of these are at the museum. I do a lot of work. Okay. There's ribbons there. I've been giving ribbons away, kind of like a Felix Gonzalez Torres, but I've been giving political ribbons away. And silk screening them. They show up everywhere on the internet. I've been doing signs. This is what I want to talk about. I've been doing signs for a really long time. We actually made Liverpool a sanctuary city years ago when I was in the Liverpool Biennial. I worked some activists. We made Liverpool a city of sanctuary within a year. I just made a flyer and I made that sign, and they wouldn't ship that sign back to me. So I gave it to an organization, and they keep sending me pictures. That's the mayor of Liverpool. Look at, there it is. I just found that last week. That's like Merseyside. That is such an awesome place. It's an old church that they get for like $1 a year, and they feed all of the asylum seekers and refugees. They're hanging there. I love that this thing that they wouldn't ship back to me that my art dealers would sell for a lot of money is like floating around Liverpool to this day. So I unionized my art school too. I was one of 5 people. We unionized the art school. We got a 25% raise, and we got scholarships for faculty. I'm Otis part-time. So I spent 2.5 years doing that. These are my posters. There's hey, we won. There's some of us. I've been doing this on the side. So I made an artwork about it. That's all the paper. That's all my labor of all the text and readings we had to do. It's like contract law, here's some more signs. So I make signs along with all this. Don't touch me. That's for our current president. Do not touch me. Yes. This flashes my body, my choice. I'm getting there. Resistors. There's Drew Barrymore with resistors. Look how many hits I got. Okay, so this is the piece I wanted to talk about. So this is one of the light pieces I made that's at the show. And it was really kind of hard because basically I'm asking the school to sign, like different, like alumni, faculty, students, pretty much anyone to ask the chancellor, is that right? The chancellor? President, sorry. The president to make Westmont a city of, or a sanctuary campus. And I didn't do such a good job, but the school came in, like alumni, right? It became an online petition, which I didn't do, people in the community did, right? And like, I don't know, today, this is a really old picture, but see how the names are growing? So I didn't do but this is the online petition, and just you can see how many people signed it. So I'm super proud of this, like, you don't have to do a huge thing. You just I kept saying that to Judy, we're just going to put it out there. It's an artwork. Let's see if anything happens. So I'm super proud of that, and thank you for letting me do it. I know it was a huge, scary thing to do, but it worked out really well, and I'm super thrilled. So thanks, Judy. Okay. Overview. I was very well. Proud of you. Your turn, Marcos. Wait, I feel weird sitting in front of you. Okay. Wait. Let's go sit over here. Whoops. Here, let me get you. No, this is good. I'll come back. Are you sure? Yeah.
Or I can bring you a chair over there for you.
No, I like this because I can see better. I'll come back to the chair.
Well, now my 15 minutes. Watch out. To save some time, I'm going to thank exactly the same people that thank you, my dog, my wife, and everything. And I was planning on to skip some images, but now I would not.
Don't skip it, Marcos.
No skipping. Yeah, when you spend like 5 minutes in the first
I know, then I moved.
project, and she told me when we were discussing about the presentation that I know take a ton of images, and she spent 5 minutes in the first project. I said she tricked me, and then I put a lot of images, and she's only going to talk about one project, but she managed to do it. So, well, to give you like my background, my name is Marcos Ramirez Pimienta. I go by the nickname of Erre, which is the first letter of my last name. Ramirez. I attempted once to paint, and I used to sign Marcos with an R, the initial, and people started calling me Marcos Erre, and so it stick. So I then, for a little time, I was like two different persons, Erre and Marcos Ramirez, so I put it together. And I was born in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico, 55 years ago. And my parents, both of them are from the central state of Jalisco, very close to the second major city, Guadalajara. And they migrated, they're from the same town, across the street, one from the other, but they met in Tijuana, California many years ago. And I'm saying this because in a way that marked my life and the work that I do. My father and my mother, they were green card holders when I was born, and they had a conversation and they decided that they wanted their kids. I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. They decided that we needed to be born in Mexico. So we were born in Mexico, and immediately after I was born, and in like 3 or 4 days I had my green card, which eventually my father and my next brother also had a green card when he was born. And And eventually there was the first law that affected our lives. And it was this proposition from one congressman to make everybody that was living in the border, at that time there were green card holders that were living in Tijuana, to forcibly move into the United States or lose their status. So half of my family moved into the U.S., some of my uncles with their sons and daughters. And my father decided to stay, and he decided to lie and say that we were living in the U.S. That gave us this particular accent that I hold right now when I speak English, because for a long time we wouldn't cross because we were afraid that they would take away our card. Because at that age, around 13, 14, I was supposed to be fluent speaking English. But my mom wanted a hamburger one of those days, and she decided to come across with the 2 kids. And then she was questioned, and similar to what is happening now, she ended up saying, well, we don't live in the U.S., we live in Mexico. And my father came, and without getting into much trouble, he said, I'm going to give you their cards, and you give me local passports, because we're not moving into the U.S., and I want to keep my transborder commuter card. So they kept their punched green cards, and they crossed to work. So we were one of these families in the world that we were one foot in one side, one in the other. It took me a long time, like 10 years, to get back my card by myself, with the support of my father, but only the signature. But I accomplished what he wanted. That he wanted me to become a professional, the first professional in their family, in both sides of the family. So I became a lawyer when I was 20 years old in the University of Baja California. And then I decided, after a year working with my uncle, that was a lawyer and had a firm, I decided that my uncle was not very decent, honest lawyer, and I didn't want to become like him. So I quit working there, and I came to the United States to work in the construction business. And I ended up, originally I was going to work there for like a month or 2, according to my father's plans, because he still wanted a professional. But I'm very stubborn, so I lasted 17 years working in construction, and I became a carpenter, and that's the only thing I've done well in my life, that I consider myself a very good carpenter. But being stubborn, right like at the 10th year of the 7th year of working in construction, I decided that I wanted to be an artist, and I started making art. So at a certain point in my life, 1994 to be exactly, I was able to put together the 3 branches of my personality, my very schizophrenic personality. The lawyer, or the guy that was worried about the world and how it functions, legal issues, justice issues, freedom issues, and stuff like that. And the carpenter, who was able to do stuff with their hands, and the artist kind of ruling the processes, you know. So I did in 94 a big project that I'm not showing, but I'm showing you a piece that came out of that. In order to be able to do the first major project that I was invited to participate on, I had to go and review my city, go into Tijuana and explore the city. And at the beginning, I explored that city as a carpenter, as an architectural interested guy in something that was related to architecture and building. And I ended up making a project at the end about social issues. But then, after presenting many of the photographs that I've taken, that I took to make that project, I presented in talks like this, those images. There was a group of artists in Tijuana that started taking photographs of these houses that I photographed. And then I'm not a photographer, but these other people that consider themselves photographers, that they started taking photos of those issues and those subjects. And eventually, 10 years after, I decided to use those and claim them back. But for me, it was not proper to be the one defining the city. So what I did with this project is I collected 30 of the images that I had, and I went out to the street and offered those images to the people in the street for them to react to them and write me a potential postcard. So right there, they fill out a paper, like sending a postcard to someone, and maybe sometimes even to themselves or to their mother or any other people. So that was for me a way to describe or define the city, not only from my standpoint, of my point of view, of my eyes, but for the feelings of 30 different people from my community. So I'm not showing you the actual piece that I did, but this gives you an idea of the place I come from. I come from a city of migrants. Tijuana right now is like a funnel. It's a place where people used to be a place to come across, and now there's a lot of people, especially from Haiti, Asians and Africans and Central Americans, that are getting stuck in Tijuana, and Tijuana is not getting support from federal funds. So we, the Tijuanans, and we are all migrants, we're supporting all these institutions that are giving shelter and food to all the African community that's coming. So there now is Haiti, little Haiti, growing up in Tijuana with all these people from African descent that are coming to the city. Well, then the second project that I did, because this was not one, but this is actually the second big project that I did it based on one proposition in 1996. It was called Proposition 187, that it was aiming to limit the rights of migrants in California. And what I did to go faster in these definitions of the pieces is I took 197 photographs, black and white, 8 by 10, of 187 different people doing 187 different jobs in California. And then I display them on the bottom around a metal container. And these are the kinds of photographs that I took, only the hands, in a way like reducing the value of the person to the work they do with their hands, even though we know it's not the only apportation that we do to the California society. And then they were on the floor, there was the container there, and inside the container I had four sculptures made with things that the migrants deal with in this social fabric of California. So I had like boxes like of agricultural, and then some uniforms and other stuff. Then I had this desk, and in the desk was a book, and in the book I had information from the people that allowed themselves to be photographed. They signed their own slips with information that not all the time was true information. Some of them lied, and it was very obvious. They were afraid of me. They were not completely believing what I was intending to do. But I got them to sign their names and the places of origin. Then in 2000, I was invited to the Whitney Biennial, and that was a big privilege to be invited and participate in there. So the curator selected this American flag made with a material that resembles the fence that has been there for a while in Tijuana, San Diego. I don't know what they're talking about when they say they want to create a wall. I've seen the wall for the last 25 years. And so I did this piece that is actually new material that I transformed and manipulated in order to make it look like a flag. And like
He doesn't know there's a fence there. He doesn't know there's a fence.
He doesn't know.
He's never been there.
Yeah, no, I think he plays the part. He knows. And basically, this is a flag that is cutting in two, a square, and in the front there's these two brick walls, and in the back there's two concrete cement blocks, and it's all filled with dirt. So it's exactly the same dirt divided and contained by two different groups of blocks. So the ones in the front are like unequal, they're fired and they're brown, and the other ones are similar and they're white, perfect, and it takes less of them to contain the same amount of them. And this is close up, and then since I was being invited to do something in the Whitney Biennial, and I was criticizing the foreign policy of the US, I thought it was proper also to criticize my own country, which has got a lot of things to be criticized. So what I did, I did this other piece that is that separated the three colors of the flag, and then I made a transformation in the Mexican seal. Unlikely, like in the US, you can deal with your symbols and your flags and use them in t-shirts or whatever. And Mexico is forbidden, and it's 5 years of penalty, federal felony to deal and manipulate the seal. But I managed to change the seal of the eagle biting the snake, and to this one in which the snake fights back and it bites the eagle. Then this is my most iconic piece, or maybe the only iconic piece. This is a piece that I did in 1997 in the inside event, which was a public art festival in Tijuana, San Diego, and that's a 10-meter high, 33 feet high Trojan horse with two heads. And it was right over the line of demarcation between Tijuana, San Diego, Mexico, and the United States. That line, yellow line in the bottom, that's the actual border. The port of entry is 50 meters inside the U.S. That allows the custom officers to come out and search your car and arrest you if you're suspicious of something. This is a replica that I did for the Sao Paulo Valencia Biennial in Spain in 2007. This is another project in the Fisher Gallery in LA. It's actually two parallel walls, one made out of wood, one made out of brick. It's got two videos, and like in this particular side is 8 minutes. It's 8 hours of work compressed into 8 minutes. The work of a group of Mexican masons and albañiles making a brick house in Rosarito, Mexico. And on the other side, I have a wooden wall, and you have 8 hours compressed into 8 minutes. Mexican workers making a wooden house in the United States. And then you can see how everything changes, how the dynamics change completely, like the uniforms, the tools, the speed of the work, and also, while you win in some aspects, you lose in some other aspects, because the Mexican side takes an hour and a half lunch breaks. Everybody shares the food. Everybody seems really happy picking work that other guy brought on, and then at the very end they change their clothes and they go with better looking clothes or whatever. But the only thing that doesn't change is the music. And in the American side, everybody looks fancy, nice cars, nice trucks and tools. Everybody's really noisy. Everything, the guns, pneumatic tools, and all that. But there's some other nostalgic feeling there with a group of people. Everything you change according to the place you go and live, and when you insert yourself in a different society, is something that gets lost in translation. Then this other piece is a mini replica of the road between Mexico City and Los Angeles, California. That's in the major plaza, El Zócalo in Mexico City, which is the second or third largest plaza all over the world. And what I did 50 boxes of wood, and then I took them to Mexico City with 13 signs from city to city, the cities in between those roads, and then we've made the concrete and filled the boxes with the help of 4 people from Mexico City. And then we proceed to walk on top of the fresh concrete. I walk from the box starting in Tijuana all the way to Mexico City, and these 4 people, they help me, they walk from Mexico City in the opposite direction all the way to LA and the middle road. And then all the steps were marked, and then when you see the codices from the Aztecs, you see that to imply movement, they used to paint the footsteps of people, and then so this would be like a modern codex. What I tried to do is I wanted to put a third level on top of the plaza, because underneath the plaza is Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztecs, and then it's the colonial Mexico in the current plaza. So for me, putting another layer was to make another layer, more contemporary, that would allow a place like Mexico City to be in touch with Los Angeles and with Tijuana, which is the city in the edge. I didn't get to know the pesos until I was 15 years old. I came in contact with some of them, but we used dollars all the way since I was born until I was 15 years old in Tijuana. So we were kind of disconnected. And then, well, this is another one, but I will jump this one because my 45 minutes are being finished. And then I'll jump this one. This is a series of pieces that are a post and 10 boxes, very simple. And the post, these poles hold 10 different posts with different cities and the distance from the post, which is always anchored to a city, let's say Santa Barbara, and to Palestine, to Praga, to Johannesburg. And one side is the destiny, the destination and the direction, and the other side is a quotation from somebody that represents that specific culture. And then the point is to say that you can have all these many opinions on one single pole, and it's possible to have different opinions in one single place. This is the loom, the other one was in Puerto Rico, this is an aspen, this is in Culiacan, this is in San Diego, this is in Toronto, and so Mexico City, and this is in Monterrey. So far there's like 18 of them. The previous project, this is another one that Andrea mentioned, and it's a billboard that I placed near the border, 2 miles from the border. And it's quite complex project because it was based on this group of people that was hunting Mexicans or any migrant that would come across the border for quite a while. And I wanted to work with the opposite, with the idea of prejudice in general, taking away the nationality of the person. So what I did, I invited a very well-known, famous and respected scholar and to pose as the pretended Minuteman. And I gave him that shirt and I put him in the US side facing Tijuana looking at the border, but in a way that you don't know if it's somebody standing right in front of him because he might be blocking the view of somebody there, or if he's going to jump into Mexico, whatever. But the thing is that people started hating that character because he represented what it was associated to the Minutemen. And what I'm trying to point out is that you cannot do that. See, if we are saying that we cannot be judged by our appearance or because we want to come and access a better life, and then if you are shorter, darker, or whatever, you are being assumed as a threat, we cannot do the opposite. They're assuming because this guy is wearing that clothes and he's got the gray hair and he's got the red neck, he's a redneck, you know? So actually, the guy is Mike Davis, is a very famous writer. He's married to a Mexican woman. He's got 2 beautiful mestizo kids, and so that proves in a way that we are all prejudiced. The thing is, it's a matter of power. Who holds the power is the one who makes it worse. And then I'm going to fly through these. One is a project that we did, myself, and a friend of mine, David Taylor. He's a professor at the University of Arizona, Campus Tucson. He teaches photography. He's an amazing photographer. And we got together, we share some interest in different subjects, and especially about the border. So we decided to do a project that took us quite a while to prepare. So in July 2014, we traveled from Tijuana to the coast of Oregon, and then from the coast of Oregon all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, marking the border between Mexico and the United States from 1821 to 1848. And but while doing that, we planted 47 markers, obelisks in the landscape, like marking all these places that used to be Mexican. And by doing that, we have slightly 2 different points of view towards the project, and we are okay with that. We can still collaborate, but there's 2 different perspectives. I was, in a way, the guy marking the thing, and he wasn't, in a way, the one allowing me, because it now is a land that belongs to the United States, and he's American. And but it's a collaboration, so we planted the 47, and he shot the photographs, which I told you they're great. And we've been presenting for the last 2 years this show at different venues in Reno and also MCA San Diego and Washington DC and also in Baja California. So this is a little joke. Please laugh. It makes me feel better. The loss of the land. This is another joke. Not this one is a little harsher, but you know, like. See, this is the border, and that's one of the markers. And we were the ones with the buildings. The weapon is not as big though. So this is the first one in Brooklyn, Oregon, and I'm just going to fly through them and then talk about other.
Do you have an image of the map, Marcos?
I don't know if I still have it.
This
I do have it.
based on the 1821 border, correct?
It's based on a treaty called the Adams-Amis Treaty between Spain and the United States. There was signed in 1819. By signing the treaty, the United States got part of the Floridas for free, and then they agreed to settle that border between the 2 countries. And then when Mexico got independent from Spain, the U.S. respected the boundary. And then in the and the opening of, this was part of the Sunrise Biennial, and the gala we did a performance in which I read in Spanish the treaty, and Taylor read in English. And then at the very end says that this is a boundary we're going to be respected forever. And then I asked him at the end, and how long it lasted forever, Mr. Taylor? And then he responds, 27 years. So it's basically, we were like, it's good to clarify that this is a border that was never marked. So what we did is the first time that we physically marked the border. They've never done it before, and so we went with the technology from now, in which Mr. Taylor is an expert, plus many other things, and then we located these places, and we were super accurate in defining what were the places along the line, and marked something. For me, it was like making a scar for a wound that is still there. It's a historical wound between the two countries that nobody wants to recognize, especially on this side of the border.
Of course, you have to go halfway up California, right?
No, you have to go all the way up to
All the way.
Oregon.
Okay,
So
and it starts
it's
there. and goes
California,
across.
New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, because there we have points of view there also, the contrast, and parts of Colorado, parts of Wyoming, and Utah. So it's a lot. There's a Tumblr with a lot of text in the web. There is delimitationtumblr.com, and you can access all the information. So here are the photos. These, unfortunately for you, these are my photos, not Mr. Taylor's photos. He would not allow his photos to be shown because he's a professional photographer. But this is. You never know what public art can do, you know? So these are like.
So you just left them there?
We left them there, yeah.
How heavy are they? Are they?
No, these are like 20 gauge, carbonized steel, and we took them in a truck, like a German, one of those German vans, like a Springer.
It's in half the pictures, your van.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have the van in the pictures.
Yeah, well, yeah, there we put half of the pieces, but they were made in 12 pieces each, and I had to put them together. So I'll put together like 4 at a time, and I will carry them and then plant them while him and then this other guy, friend of ours, Jose Inercia, he filmed a documentary about the making of this thing, and we had a lot of interviews.
You camped in that van.
We camped in the van, and I've become Mr. Taylor is a happy camper, and he loves the outdoors. He can survive on 1 apple and 2 almonds. I only did it like for 2 days, and next time I was hunting for a hamburger. You know? Yeah. He was lucky. We would eat him, you know, like the Spanish guy was also big, and he was hungry.
Permission?
No permission. It's like permission would be too much, you know. So yeah. It needs to be like this. But we took responsibility for the project. So in the back of the pieces, they had this like thing that you can put the smartphone and read the code. And that will take you immediately to 2 persons, Mr. Taylor and me, and the Tumblr.
The QR.
And the QR code. And that way they could find us. So we were not denying or the responsibility about the project, but we were not going to go ask everybody to allow us. Because that's many states, like 8 states.
You'd be like Krista.
Yeah. So that's
Jean-Claude.
the last one. This is the way we present the exhibition with the 47 photos plus the band and then obelisks and then
There's the maps.
then maps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the map there's a map, and then this is a map with the extracted area and the 2 points of view. The point of view from Mexico, which when you see the blue with copper one, you see that the surface is 55% of the whole Mexico, while in the U.S. it's only like a third of the surface. These are all the would-be border towns. These are other historical maps. When you go to the U.S., then you found a lot of historical references, but they were really poor. Sometimes were about gunfights between bandoleros or gunfighters, while you knew that like a couple of miles away there were like massacre sites from the 5th Cavalry against Indian populations. Why not talk about that instead of these other things, you know? So when we did 4 pieces that deal with the real historical facts. Just 3 weeks ago, we did a project, me in collaboration with a German Filipino artist that was born in the U.S. and lives in Germany. She's doing her PhD, and she came up with this idea to help out in making this mirror right against the border, and then this table, and then we had a meal with people that were there, like people, refugees, deported people, and some were students. And so we held a meal, and since the other side doesn't want to have a conversation with us, we invented this reflection in which we were, instead of being 10 or 15, we were 30, because we were just reflected in the other side. And this is the meal at night. Yeah, well,
We're done, Marcus.
who's
I
that?
think we're done.
See, revenge is sweet.
Okay. Thank you. I know some of you probably have to go, which is fine, but I did want to ask before we all disband tonight. I did want to ask, and I promised Judy I would ask. Going back to the show at Westmont Museum, ask sort of how this project actually came together, and also ask to, have you collaborated before together? I know you guys are good friends and you've known each other for a long time. Is this your first collaboration, or?
No, I mean, we collaborate a lot. You ran through them. You want to run through them really quickly? Collaboration?
The collaboration as artists, because I made a sort of a curating or selection of artists in the space that I used to run. It was called Tazón Tijuana, and together a show that was very successful with 6 artists, and I just was like coordinating and hosting.
That was in Tijuana.
That was in Tijuana, Mexico. But then,
We did a show in the
Yeah.
Midwest.
yeah, Andrea is my friend and also like my protector, and got who is a comadre or godmother or something like that. So she invited me to this event in Chicago, and she presented the Saulito project, and I presented something about the war, an helicopter that had a projector,
Yeah, that's so
and it's got videos about the war, because I only selected works that had to do with the border, but I have interest in dealing with other subjects like war, violence, and some other different topics. So there, I presented in one spot and you in the other. It was a very nice experience, and plus we share the same interest in many ways. And like we were talking about this issue of why we together in this space. Well, she's an activist. I cannot consider myself an activist, but I'm an activist or whatever. And she deals with subjects of migration. I'm a migrant. So, and I live in one foot in the U.S., one foot in Mexico. I got back my green card, which I'm really afraid that I might lose if I keep doing what I'm doing. But I cannot stop. I have to do what I have to do. So, the other day they invited me from the University in Brown and University in the Middle Eastern department. So when I received the invitation was the same day that the first band entered to become like a law or whatever. I was afraid, to tell you the truth. I'm going to go there with 2 Middle Eastern activists to talk about all these subjects. But I understood that I had to do it. I had to go and I had to talk and I had to explain my point of view. I don't know, you can tell how else.
I mean, I guess when Judy asked me to do the show, I was thinking about LA, and I was actually thinking about critiquing it and wondering how it would turn out, and thinking that, it's a really big production, but it's so easy to just do work with one of my best friends. You know, and that this show, if I was going to do this show, it had to reflect like both sides of the border. Couldn't just be my voice. And I think that Marcos he's so smart, and he has a kind of global perspective in a way that I don't. And I think that, you know, I have white privilege and privilege of being an American. So I tend to work with local activist groups, and I believe in working really locally, and those local issues reflect global issues, although each, you know, local issue is really particular. I still think there's global implications, and Marcos just has like, I think from being a lawyer and from just how much he researches, he has this perspective also of, you know, living on the other side of the border, and he looks at bigger picture. So I thought that was like really, really important. And I owe so much to Marcos and Coco because they did have this exhibition space in Tijuana. When did you start that, Estacio in Tijuana?
In November 2009, started like 2002.
2002. So I think I had an apartment in, so this crazy space Marcos had, no kidding. When you walked across the border, there were these turnstiles. I can tell you the noise because my apartment was right next to it. Ching, 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 ching. You know, one of those turnstile things, like all night long. Ching, 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 if people cross the border. So this space was literally, when you walked across the border, and if you just looked right, it was right there. And it was filled with cultural producers, like Lucia San Roman, who's now the curator at Yerba Buena. She and her husband, who's doing a lot of the, Giacomo's doing a lot of the design for the Getty, for the LA exhibition. And we just all lived, you know, in this space. And I think that in so many ways, Marcos was like, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was like literally not trying to create an exhibition space. He was trying to create a social space where he was showing outside of Tijuana, and he was literally inviting people that he was meeting to come to Tijuana and meet artists and cultural producers in Tijuana. And Coco is an incredible chef and creates amazing hospitality. And together, you know, like it was this incredible, that idea of radical hospitality. It was creating a kind of utopic environment, and it was, you know, real political work, but through radical hospitality. And I really think that so much of my political thinking was developed during that time period. Of just experiencing and meeting so many different people and becoming acutely aware of my privilege. You know, my whiteness is not neutral. My whiteness is, you know, this, you know, there's like it's like there's issues of whiteness, and then there's everybody else that are othered, right? And I learned at that point, you know, that was horrible, and I had to fight to change that, and I had to talk about those things all the time. But I learned it. I learned so much about my political voice and about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life through this radical hospitality of friendship. And I think it still continues today. And I think Marcos might be working on Estacio Tijuana 2.0. Is that next time?
Really? What might that look like?
Well, it will be more like a school.
Like a school?
Like a little place to teach people how to use also their hands and do stuff.
But you want to work with local artisans, students, and professional artists. Try to like come together and work on a project.
Little Wild House type of thing.
In the same location?
And no, it's 10 blocks away. It's my father owns
But still on
nail shop.
on the
Very close
Mexico
to
side.
the Mexico side.
Yeah.
And he'll have rooms for residencies, and there'll be a little cafe.
There'll be a little cafe, like a combination between residency and Airbnb, so that people with money can pay
For the residency.
for the ones that don't have the money to be there. And then maybe work with schools and having like a 2-professor class on a local craftsman teaching how to make shoes, let's say. and then a fashion designer, you know, and then so they do a project, we exhibit the project, and then let's say a chair would be another one, and then we have an architect or industrial designer talking about chairs, industrial chairs, and whatever, and then a master carpenter or a welder to make through the designs of the kids and or the kids, or not too kids, you know, not too young. And then in order to make also go back to the basics of being able to make stuff. And if it's very hard to survive as an artist, maybe you can do on the side, like I used to make a lot of boxes for people to live in. You can do chairs, you can do shoes, you can do any other subject, you know. So that would be a perfect way to close the life, having a space like that.
Sounds fantastic. Okay, thanks so much. I think that's a great place to end. And thanks for coming. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Marcos. Thank you, Judy, Chris. This has been fantastic.
No questions?
I don't
Thank you.
think we have time, but thank you.
Longest 10 minutes of our lives.